I'm actually live. For those of you that are new, there's actually this big thing that comes up, but I think I actually go live a little sooner, and it takes a minute for the YouTube live stream thing to go away, so I can't see what's going on or anything for a second. All right, I am live. It tells me now that I am live. All right, hey guys, Rick Stone here, and I am the founder of the Gardening Academy and also the primary author on the website Our Stoney Acres, which is a gardening website, and I'm excited to be here for another gardening workshop today. So we'll kind of just hang out here for a minute or two while people start to come in. I'm excited about today's workshop because I think I've got some really good stuff for you. I've got some good information. We're going to talk about cool season versus warm season crops, and then we are going to cover 16 easy crops for you to grow in your backyard garden. So these are kind of a wide variety of cool season, warm season, vegetables, and we're going to talk about some herbs. So looking forward to that. Okay, it looks like we're starting to get a few people on here. So let's do this. In the comments, introduce yourself and tell me where you're from, and then tell me what your favorite garden vegetable is. Okay, so tell me what is the favorite vegetable that you like to grow in your garden, or if you don't have a garden yet and are still working on one, what you would like to grow. So let's put those over in the comment section. So we've got Chrislyn is here and Ward is here. Hi guys. Ward's from Toronto, Zone 6. That's pretty similar to what we are, but you're a lot further north than we are, that's for sure. Okay, who else is here? It says we've got at least 9 people in the view, so everybody else, let me know where you're from, what your favorite vegetable is to grow, or one that you would like to grow. What do we have going on there? While we are waiting for a few more people to respond, let's talk a little bit about what we have covered in the first 2 new gardener workshops. So if you guys have missed the other 2 workshops, there's links down in the description below that will connect you up to the other 2 workshops. In the first workshop, we talked about what the 3 different types of gardens are, and when you might want to use an in-ground garden versus a raised bed garden versus container gardens, and what the advantages of each of those are. And then we talked a little bit about where you should actually be putting your garden as well. So that's what we talked about in the first one. The second one, we talked about some heirloom versus hybrid seeds and the difference between those. And then we talked about what I think is the most important thing for any new gardener to do, and that's to start small. And so that's workshop number 2. Today in this workshop, like I said, we're going to cover 16 easy crops to grow in your backyard garden, and we're also going to talk a little bit about cool season versus warm season crops. Okay? All right, as we're kind of waiting for people to accumulate, we usually get about 30 or 40 people here, and we're up to 16 now. Remember, guys, if you want to say hi in the comment section. Tell me where you're from and what your favorite vegetable is to grow. And let's talk for just a minute while we're kind of waiting for people to come. Let's talk a little bit about the Gardening Academy. So I'm the founder of the Gardening Academy, and what the Gardening Academy is it's a monthly membership service that helps you become a better gardener. So the whole point in this system is to help you just become an overall better gardener. So we've got a whole bunch of different ways that we do that. We've got a gardening foundation course that's free as part of the membership. It's a 6-module course. It's a 4-module course that's about a 3.5 hour long course that kind of gives you the good basics on what you're going to be doing. And then the best part of the Gardening Academy is the monthly themes. So we do these monthly themes every month where we choose a topic, a gardening topic, and we discuss that topic for the month. And we focus on that. And so far we have 6 months worth of topics that are there for you. If you join now, you'll have those 6 months to see. Plus we do a new one every month. And we'll focus on a different aspect. Like this month, we're focusing on growing tomatoes, and so that's what our focus is for the month. And then we have weekly deliverables that you can use to become a better gardener. The first week of the month, we do a planting guide, and we go through all the different zones and tell you what you should be planting in your garden. And then the second week, we do a mini course on whatever the topic is. The third week, we do a live Q&A session where I answer all your questions. Fourth week, we do various different things. We kind of rotate through expert interviews, garden tours, maybe another mini course, lots of other good stuff that we do, book reviews, good stuff there. So we rotate through all of those. So every week you get something new for your membership fee. We also have a couple of other courses that are part of that, a tomato growing course and a potato growing course. We have a private Facebook group, which is really awesome. We've got a good community there. We've got a really nice core group of people, about 30 people in the Gardening Academy, and price the money that you pay for it. It's a super fun program that we've really been having a good time with. Okay, so let's see who's here. So Chrysalyn says she's in zone 7B and her favorite vegetable is collard greens. Collards are not a big thing here in Utah. And so I've actually never grown them before, but I bought seeds this year. So we're going to try collards out this year, see how they do. Arlene is from OK, which I'm assuming is Oklahoma. Don is here from Florida. Ward says he's a landscape carpenter and looking to learn more about encouraging folks away from flowers and towards vegetables. So awesome. Great. All good things. Welcome, guys. Okay. Got about 20 people here now, so let's maybe go ahead and get started with the workshop. Last time we went about 45 minutes. That's what I'm hoping to do again today. So let me get myself reoriented here so that we can see the slides for a minute. And I'm not going to do as many slides this time. I actually brought some seed packets and things for us to talk about, but I do have a few slides for you. So today we're going to talk about two different things. First, we're going to talk about cool season versus warm season crops. And I think that that's something that's very, very important for every gardener to know. And it surprises me how many people don't know that. In fact, even today, we've got a Facebook group that my Master Gardener class actually created about 6 years ago. And somebody was posting, oh, I planted all of these this weekend. And 2 of them were warm season crops that are not going to survive in March in Utah. It's just not going to happen. So I think it's important for us to understand the difference between a cool season and a warm season crop, and what and when you plant those. Okay, so the first thing that you guys need to know is you need to know your frost date. So I can kind of give you some rough estimates of when those frost dates are going to be based on what your garden zone is. It's a little bit hairy as to whether they're those estimates are really right. Like zone 9, zone 10, you probably don't really have a frost date. They're just pretty random. Zone 9 people, probably end of February for you. Zone 8 is probably the middle of March. Zone 7, 1st of April. Zone 6, maybe April 15th to April 30th. Zone 5, May 1st. Zones 3 and 4, you're probably more like May 15th to June. But that's really variable. For example, I'm a zone 6B, but our last frost isn't until May 15th. So the thing that you need to do in order to determine your last frost date is you need to go out and Google it for your specific town. And in almost any case, you should be able to determine an average last frost date and an average first frost date for your area. So you want to know when the last frost date is in the spring, and you want to know when the first frost date is in the fall, because that will have a bearing on our cool season versus warm season garden crops. Okay, so figure that out. You need to know when it is. Maybe in the comment section, guys, maybe you guys can throw up some examples of when your frost dates are. So tell me what your zone is and what your frost date is in the comments. So we'll do that. Okay, so let's talk about cool season crops versus warm season crops. Okay. And the reason why frost dates are so important is because warm season crops cannot be planted before that last frost date. Okay, so these would be crops like tomatoes and beans and peppers and eggplant and what else? Potatoes to some extent, corn, New Zealand spinach, Malabar spinach, all of the melons, squash, cucumbers, winter squash, zucchini, all of those are warm season crops, okay? And what really determines whether they're warm season or not is their frost sensitivity. So any of those crops that I just listed will not stand up to frost. So if they get any type of freeze on them, it's going to kill the plant almost exclusively. Now you can mess with that a little bit by using hoop houses or fabric row covers, or maybe like the wall of waters, those clotches that you can fill with water. All of those you can kind of use to, extend your growing season a little bit. But for the most part, warm season crops are not going to grow until that last frost has come. You don't want your tomatoes out in the garden exposed to a frost. They're going to be gone. Okay, and so that's what warm season crops are. Cool season crops can handle a little bit of frost. Okay, now you're not going to be planting, if you live in a zone 5, you're not going to be planting cool season crops in January. It's not going to happen. But you might plant some in late March. Okay, so they can handle a certain amount of frost and a certain amount of freezing temperatures, and will be okay. And the other thing is about cool season crops is they prefer to grow in that cool season. So they like to be growing, but a lot of those cool season crops they'll start suffering as the heat gets warmer. Okay, and again, so cool season crops, examples of cool season crops would be peas and lettuce and Swiss chard and arugula and spinach, all of the regular spinaches, onions to some extent, and then you've got like most of your root crops like carrots and turnips and beets are all kind of what you would consider cool season crops. But we also have some crops that are kind of in between a little bit, okay? And I've probably listed all of those between these two conversations. But you do have some that are a little hardier and can stand up to either the cool or the heat a little bit better. So examples of that might be, for example, corn. Corn, when it's young, will stand up to a little bit of frost. And so you can plant your corn a week or two before your last frost date, because it's not going to come up for a week anyways, and then if it does happen to get a little bit of frost, it'll be okay. But it doesn't like a lot of frost, okay? Plants like beets or Swiss chard, really anything in that family, they're actually, you want to plant those in the cool season, but they're going to kind of make their way through the warm season, and they'll start being harvested towards the end of your warm season. Then we get, trying to think what else we might have that kind of is those quasi, warm season, cool season. Peas, to some extent, peas will stand up to a little bit of heat. Not a lot of heat, but a little bit. And so you can get away with planting those just a little bit later in the year. Turnips, carrots, to some extent as well. So those will kind of bridge that gap a little bit. Swiss chard is a great example. Kale also would be another really good example. They're a cool season crop, but they'll do fine in the heat as well. And so those almost, like Swiss chard and kale, I grow almost year round. It grows well under protection in the winter, but it also does well in the summer. Now it tastes better in the cool season than it does in the warm season, but those are kind of those crops. Okay. All right, so that's the difference between cool season versus warm season crops. Okay, it looks like we do have one question over here from Colleen. How deep should we be planting potatoes? Okay, so potatoes, it depends on the style of how you're going to grow them. If you're just going to grow them in a flat bed, then you should put the soil. Then once they start to sprout and come up, I would cover them again. And then when they sprout, you cover them again and you cover them again until you kind of build this mound up. So it really depends on where you're going. But if you're just planting them straight out in the garden and you're not going to mess with mounding them up, then 4 inches deep is what you're looking for. Put a little compost in the bottom of the trench, and then you should be good. Okay. All right. So hopefully, Colleen, that answers your question. And guys, if you have questions as we go along, I'll kind of stop and pause as we go. And then really quick, again, for those of you that are just joining us, make sure that you check out the link down below for the Gardening Academy. That's our monthly membership service. And it's a great program. It's open right now, and it's only open for the next 2 days. So it closes on Tuesday night at midnight, the 24th of March. So go down and click on that link when we're done with the workshop and check it out, because it's a great program. Okay? All right, so let's move on to our list. So here's what I want to talk about for the rest of this workshop. And how far are we? We're about 15 minutes in. Good. Going good. I don't want to keep you guys all day. Hi, Julianne, by the way. Glad to have you here. All right, so let's talk about some crops that are easy to grow. So these are simple, easy to grow crops for your garden. And so here's the list. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually make me a little bit bigger, because I brought seed packages for us. So let's go here and make me a bit bigger. How does that work? Let's go like this for now. Okay. And then let's go through those. So first off, we're going to talk about cool season crops. So, okay, these are the crops that you're going to be growing in the spring and then again in the fall. So that's one thing that a lot of people don't realize is all of these cool season crops that I'm going to be talking about today, you can grow them in the spring, but you can also plant them again in the fall. So late summer and early fall, you can get all of these planted again, and you'll get 2 harvests of all these vegetables, okay? All right, so the first one on my list is peas, okay? And either sugar snap or snow peas, either one are relatively easy to grow. So these are a nice, simple pea to grow. And the reason why I put these on the easy to grow list is because both snow peas and sugar snap peas can be harvested and eaten at basically any stage. So once you get pod development like this growing, then you can start harvesting them, and they're edible at any stage. Whereas shelling peas they're not as versatile. So you have to know when to pick them and exactly when to pick them and stuff like that. And so they're a little bit more difficult to grow. So if you're just getting started and you want to grow some peas, I would recommend my main preference would be sugar snap peas, because you can start eating them as soon as you have pods, and then they'll eventually get big, and you can shell them if you want shelled peas, but you can also eat the pods. They're great in stir fries, all that kind of stuff. Snow peas, a little less versatile. Well, let's go this way. Snow peas are a little less versatile because you can't eat them. They don't fill in and get peas as well. And so you're just eating the pods, and they're the kind of the flat pods that you see. Okay. All right. Karen's here from Iowa. Welcome. All right. Next on the list is leaf lettuces. So I love leaf lettuces. They are simple to grow. They require a ton less maintenance than any other type of lettuce, and they're just super easy to grow, and they can grow well in the spring. You can plant them really early, and then kind of succession plant all the way through the spring. And leaf lettuces will even hold up a little bit better to the heat. You may get a week or 2 longer out of leaf lettuces than you do others. So those are definitely the one if you're just getting started and you're looking for some easy to grow vegetables. Leaf lettuce is the way to go with lettuces, because it's easy to grow. You can do cut and come again, which means you can cut them down basically to the base of the plant and they'll regrow, and so you get multiple harvests out of the same plant. And so yeah, leaf lettuces, really, that's where, if you want to start growing lettuces, I would suggest you start with leaf lettuces. And again, remember, cool season crops, so you can plant them in the spring, and you can also plant them again in the late summer and fall as well. And lettuces hold up relatively well to frost and cold temperatures. For us, we can usually keep lettuce growing until mid-December if we put it in like a cold frame or something like that in the fall. So great crop for new gardeners. Next on the list then is Swiss chard. I love Swiss chard for its versatility. It is one that really grows year-round. It is considered a cool season crop. It's going to taste a little bit better in the spring and in the fall, and will be a little more tender. But it can grow basically year round. I mean, I plant. I've already got, it's March 23rd, and we planted a week ago. We planted Swiss chard, and I still have some that I planted last fall that we're harvesting now, that we overwintered in a hoop house. And so Swiss chard is very versatile, really easy to grow. The plants can be very productive. You can pick the leaves when they're young and tender, and then as the plant continues to grow, it gets big and it gets this stockiness to it, like you see here in this picture. And you can actually use this kind of as a celery replacement. Our kids have filled it with peanut butter and eaten it like celery before. It's really good. So, and it's versatile in stir fries. Goes in a lot of other good dishes as well. And again, really easy to grow and relatively pest-free. Pretty good crop for a new gardener to grow. Okay. Next on the list is kale, and unfortunately I didn't have any kale seed packages that actually had a picture. There are actually 3 different types of kale that you can grow. One that's called a dinosaur kale. One that is called, and the dinosaur kales are the kind that have kind of the long, crinkly leaves, also called Lasiano or Italian kale sometimes. Then we have the crinkly leaf kale, which your varieties there would be like Vates or Winterbore. A lot of different varieties there. And then we have the Red Russian, which this is a Red Russian kale, and these have a little bit broader leaf, smoother and broader leaves. So a lot of different variety. Kale is another one of those plants that you can grow year round in almost any climate. I mean, it's so hardy that even those of you that live in zones as low as maybe 4 could grow kale year round. So really good crop, very versatile, very easy to grow, very carefree. Not a lot of pest problems other than aphids do like these, so you have to watch out for aphids. But kale is a great crop for a new gardener to grow. Very simple, easy to grow. It does taste better in the spring and the fall than it does in the summertime. But overall, really, really good crop and easy to grow. Okay? All right. This one is one of my favorites because you get quick results. So this is radishes. So radishes are a sorry guys, every once in a while I jump over here and watch what's going on in the feed and I lost my train of thought. Radishes are a very simple, quick growing crop. So you could be planting these, depending on where you live, you could be planting radishes right now. We've already planted some radishes in our garden, and they grow very, very quickly as 30 days, and you can be harvesting radishes. And you want to harvest them when they're young and small. You don't want them to get big because they get woody and a lot more, I don't know if bitter is the right taste, but radishes already have kind of a peppery taste, and they get very, very strong as they get older. So plant them often in small patches, and they'll grow very quickly. And these are a cool season crop. They're not going to do well in the summertime. So you're going to plant them in the spring and you're going to plant them in the fall. But they're quick growers, very easy, very rewarding for kids. So this is, if you want to get your kids interested in gardening, this is one of the crops that you're going to be planting right away for them, is radishes, because it's quick results. They'll come up quickly and they'll be ready to eat in just a few days. Okay? All right. Next on the list is beets. Now, beets are either a love them or hate them type vegetable. Kind of the same with kale as well. Lots of people really love beets. Lots of people really hate beets. I used to think that beets tasted like dirt, but I've been eating them a lot more here lately, and my tastes have really changed, and I love beets now. So just a very easy, simple to grow. And the nice thing about beets is that you get 2 different types of harvests. So you can eat the beet greens, or you can eat the beet root. Okay, and so you can get a harvest right away by pulling a few of the greens off and eating those in your salads, and then you can wait for the roots to mature. So beet greens are ready usually in about 30 days, and the roots themselves usually take about 50 to 60 days depending on variety. But another simple to grow crop, and these, although they are considered a cool season crop, they will actually do pretty well even in the summertime. So if you wanted to do a late planting of these and let them grow through the summertime, again, you lose a little bit of taste quality when you're growing them out of season, but they will stand up to the heat. So that's another really good option for you as a new gardener. Okay, and then last on the list of our cool season crops to grow are bunching onions. Now, I chose bunching onions for this workshop because they're so low maintenance. They just really don't need a lot of extra work. You plant the seeds. Preferably you want to start them indoors first, and get onions are just like you see here in the picture. They're more like a green onion. Okay, so they're not gonna bulb up. You're not gonna get an onion bulb out of them. These are meant for slicing and putting on things. Great flavor, very versatile, and very easy and carefree to grow. So you can and these are onions I don't usually recommend that you plant by seed in the garden, but instead usually I would recommend you use seedlings. But bunching onions, you could put some seeds out in the garden. It'll take a little while for them to get up and get going, but you can definitely do it that way as well. So bunching onions, another really simple, carefree way to get started in your garden. Okay? All right, so let's move on to warm season crops, and let me turn myself off here for just a second. Where is you want this one? This one. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so warm season, I have 4 warm season crops that I want to talk about today that we're going to grow. Determinate tomatoes, cucumbers, bush beans, and zucchini. So let's turn me back on. Okay, first off, before we start on that, let's take a look at what's going on over here in the feed. Elizabeth is looking forward to some perennial kale. I've never grown perennial kale, so that's cool. Miller's Garden is here. Marvin the Magi is here from New Jersey. And Debbie has a question here, wondering when to start my seeds in solo cups with holes, and why fruit flies like bugs come in and kill my little seedlings. Is it too much water? Okay. All right. It's probably more like white flies that are killing your seedlings, not fruit flies. It's probably some type of white fly that's killing them, and you can limit that by a couple of different things, and you have to be a little bit careful. So if you've got that problem, the way you would limit that is by making sure that you keep the surface of the soil on those seedlings dry. But there's real mix here. You have to be careful because you don't want to dry out your seedlings and kill them. But if you can keep that surface dry, and so one of the best ways to do that is by watering from the bottom. So use a container that has holes in the bottom, and then you put them in a tray, and then you fill the tray with water, and then the water soaks up through the holes into your soil and waters your plants, but it doesn't really get the surface all that wet. Another thing that you can do to help with the whitefly and insect problem is to put a little bit of a fan. So just a small, not like one of those giant fans, but just like maybe a small fan, and have it blow across the surface really slow. It doesn't have to be on high, just on low, but have it blow across the surface of your seedlings. That will toughen up your seedlings, and it will also keep that surface dry, and then there won't be quite the same environment, and the bugs won't like it as much. Other options too is if you start getting an infestation like that, you could spray with insecticidal soap, which you can buy that or you can make it yourself. And just Google a recipe. I can't off the top of my head remember what the ratio is. It seems like to me it's like a half a teaspoon of soap to about a quart of water, but Google that and make sure you do it right. But you can just make that insecticidal soap, and if you see those bugs, you can spray your plants. It's not going to hurt your plants, but it's just a little liquid dish soap in water, and it's what it does is it suffocates those bugs. So those are some options to help you there. And yes, it is probably almost anywhere you live, it's time to get started with your seedlings indoors. So I usually will start my cool season crops about 8 to 10 weeks before my last frost. My warm season crops I start about 6 weeks before. Okay, let's see what else is going on here. So we've got some other questions. Lily, I'm not sure what ones are growing in your yard in the way of bunching onions. I'd have to see what we're talking about. And yeah, Miller is saying water from the bottom. That's definitely good. And we've got Elsa from California, and we just got Garden here as well. Is it too cold in Michigan, zone 5-6, to start seeds outside? You're probably okay to get a few things started outside. Okay, those things that you would be starting outside right now would be, again, cool season crops. So lettuce, spinach, arugula, carrots, beets, radishes, all of those you can start planting about now. 5-6, if you're 5-6, I'm zone 6 and I planted about a week ago outside. So you're probably there, and I might recommend that you get some light fabric row cover and put over the top of those seed beds once you plant them. That will help to make a little bit warmer environment, and will also give a little bit of frost protection if you have a frosty night. But definitely some of those cool season crops you could get planted now. When do you make the decision to toss seedlings that look too weak? That's tough to know. If they're long and leggy and they're anything besides a tomato, they're probably not going to make it. So if they get long legginess to them, you need to be getting your light closer to the source. And so, if they're not looking healthy, I would always lean towards getting something else planted, and get started, and maybe, go again. Okay, all right, so let's move on. And guys, I am going to, I'll look at these other questions that you have, and we'll answer those towards the end, but I want to make sure that we move forward on the easy crops too. So I will get back to some questions when we get to the end. So keep them coming, and I'll keep looking at them. Okay, all right, so next then we're going to talk about 4 easy warm season crops for you to grow. First one would be tomatoes, but a specific type of tomato. Okay, we're looking for determinate tomatoes. So there's determinate and indeterminate, and determinate tomatoes are specifically bred. They're almost always hybrid varieties, not 100%, but quite often, and they're specifically bred to stay relatively contained. So for a new gardener who's just getting started and trying to learn about everything that's going on, I recommend you choose a determinate variety of tomato, because there's less involved in dealing with it. You can just put a cage on it, and you don't have to prune it. You don't have to fuss with trellising it and all that kind of stuff. So a determinate tomato, and you should be able to, if you look at your seed starting catalogs, or if you ask your nursery, any nursery that's worth its weight is going to be able to tell you whether the variety that they have for you is a determinate or an indeterminate variety. And for new gardeners, choose a determinate variety, because you need to get a few years under your belt before you actually start tackling some of the more difficult things. Okay, another warm season crop that is relatively easy to grow is cucumbers. Now, cucumbers will occasionally be susceptible to a few diseases, especially powdery mildew. But overall, they're a good choice. You do need to have a trellis for most varieties of cucumbers, and so you need to build some type of simple trellis, maybe 3 or 4 feet tall. Keep them up off the ground. They do much better and are much more productive if they're grown on a trellis. But cucumbers are a really good, easy to grow, very productive, lots of reward type of warm season crop to grow. Okay, and remember, all of these are warm season. Okay, next on the list was bush beans, and this particular variety is not a green bean, it's a purple that we really love. Bush beans can be very, very productive. The more you pick them, the more productive they will be. So make sure that you, as soon as you see that your beans are getting to the edible length, get out there and pick them. Don't let them go too long, because then the plant starts focusing on the seed production inside those pods instead of on producing more beans. So make sure you pick them often, but bush beans don't take up a lot of space. They usually are ready to harvest in as quick as maybe even like 55 days, and so super good option for a new gardener. So bush beans, great option. And then the last, this is mostly for the reward of it, is zucchini. Okay, sometimes zucchini can have a bit of a problem with powdery mildew, and that depends on where you live. Those of you that live in the more humid climates will have more of an issue than those in drier climates, although that's not living in a drier climate isn't a guarantee you're not going to have powdery mildew issues. But zucchini are relatively easy to grow, and one plant produces a crap load of fruit. Okay, so one plant will produce upwards of maybe 40 or 50 pounds of zucchini in a year. And so plant one plant if you're just starting out. Don't make the mistake of planting too many, and then away you go. Okay, so very, very, very good option for you for a new gardener. Okay, all right, before we move on to the next slide, I'll get it up here. But before we move on, don't forget to go down and check the link below for the Gardening Academy. We're only open in the Gardening Academy for 2 more days, today and tomorrow. This is your chance to join our fun little community of gardeners and learn a lot more about gardening. So again, that's down below. Okay, so let me turn my video off again here for a second, and let's look at the list of herbs that are easy to grow. Okay, so these are all relatively easy to grow herbs, and most of them are fairly easy, or they're fairly frost resistant as well. Basil is the one exception to that. So basil is not frost resistant, but most of those other herbs are relatively frost resistant and pretty easy to grow. Okay, I just want to make sure that I look. Sorry, guys, I'm just making sure. I don't want the feed to get away from me too much and have us miss some questions here. So, okay, so herbs, 5 herbs that are easy to grow. First one is basil, and basil is a lot of people's favorite herb to grow, especially fresh basil. We grow a ton of basil every year because we love pesto so much. We make a lot of pesto. I've got basil plants already growing in the windowsill, and we plant them out in the garden as well. So basil is a fairly easy one. I would choose this Italian large leaf variety. It's the least tricky to grow and most productive, and so basil is a really good. Now, the one thing you need to recognize about basil is, though, it's a warm season crop for sure. So you can't plant it outside until you don't have any frost chances left. Okay? All right. Next one on the list is dill. And dill is a really simple herb to grow. Sometimes it's a weed, really. There's a reason why sometimes you'll see it called dill weed, because it can be a weed. It will reseed all over the garden if you're not careful. So you want to make sure that you harvest it before those seed heads start falling and dropping, or you'll have dill coming up for months and months afterwards. So, but very easy to grow, lots of uses for dill, and so that's a really good one. Parsley is one that I really love to grow in our garden, and one of the reasons why is because it's so hardy. So parsley will do well in the spring. It makes it all the way through the summertime, and then it's actually pretty hardy in the winter if you give it a little protection. So put it in a hoop house or a cold frame, or maybe under some fabric row cover, and it does pretty well. In down to about zone 6, it'll do fairly well in the wintertime. I've got a plant that I left unprotected out in the garden that made it all the way through the winter this year. So parsley is a nice, easy one to grow. It's a little finicky to get started, so you might consider buying, a seedling instead of seeds to kind of start your journey on parsley. But really easy, simple, carefree to grow. Okay. Chives is one that we love to have. It's a perennial, so it's going to come back year after year after year, and really simple to grow, really simple to care for. Basically, all you do is cut it down in the fall, and it comes back in the spring. You can harvest it. It starts. Ours is already starting to put up new shoots. You can start harvesting those shoots right away. The flowers can be harvested and used to flavor vinegars and things like that. Very simple to grow. This is one that I would definitely, if you're a first-time gardener, I would recommend that you probably buy a seedling to transplant out into your garden instead of trying from seeds, because they're a little bit finicky to start from seeds. But if you just go buy a seedling of chives, it's going to last for years and years and years. The one we have is already 8 years old and still producing well. Okay, and then the last really simple one is a controversial herb, and that's cilantro. I am one of those people that doesn't like cilantro at all, but I have seeds because my family likes it. Cilantro tastes like soap to me. But so some people love cilantro, some people hate it. Cilantro is a cool season crop for sure. It handles frost well. You need to be getting it planted now, and then you can plant it again in the fall. It does not do well in the summertime, so it will bolt, which means it puts up seed heads and doesn't have nearly as good a quality in the summertime. So get it planted now in the spring and then plant it again in the fall. It likes that cooler weather, but very easy to grow, simple to take care of. So another good option. Okay. All right. So that is the list of 16 plants that are easy to grow. Let me run through the list one more time really quick. Sugar snap peas, leaf lettuce, Swiss chard, kale, radishes, beets, bunching onions, determinate tomatoes, cucumbers, bush beans, zucchini, basil, dill, parsley, chives, and cilantro. All of those are great, simple to grow crops. Now, let me see if I can figure out how to, oh good, look, we can get back up in the chat here, answer a few more questions. All right, so Garden wanted to know what type of soil he should put in his grow boxes. Let me look up. You told us what it was. 2x6 foot planter, 3 foot high. Okay. So with grow boxes like that, you've got a couple of different options. And so you need to kind of determine what you're looking for and what you're going to be planting. So I like to plant in my grow boxes. I plant a lot of potatoes. I plant corn every once in a while, popcorn in those. And so I like to have a good solid soil in my grow boxes. And so I used a mix of 50% topsoil and 50% compost. Okay, so that's what I went with, and it's going really well. And I have several other gardening friends that used a similar mix. And then every year you just continue to put compost in it so that it keeps it in good condition. And I like that because it gives a little more structure to the soil, and therefore it holds on to some of those plants a little bit better, some of those taller plants that might get blown over in the wind and things like that. So that's why I chose that. It's also a little bit easier to care for that soil. It's a little less finicky. The other option that you would have is to do some type of soilless mix. And those soilless mixes are usually a mixture of a third compost, a third peat moss, and a third either perlite or vermiculite, which that perlite and vermiculite are, you mix those into the soil and they help to retain moisture. So those seedless mixes are a little bit finicky, a little bit more finicky to take care of, in my opinion, and my experience too. I had 4 garden beds at our last place that I used that mix in. The one thing that I hated about it is we live in a very windy area, and the soil just didn't hold on to the roots. There wasn't enough structure to the soil, if that makes sense. And so we were constantly having plants blow over in the wind, and the root, they pull them right out by the root because there just wasn't enough soil structure there. So if that makes sense. So you choose. I like the topsoil compost mix, but that's kind of what I go with. Okay. Do I have to line the planter with plastic or landscape cloth? No, you don't. I would not use plastic. Definitely not plastic. If you're worried about your native soil migrating up into your garden bed, then I might put a landscape fabric underneath it. But if you, so the reason why you might do that, for example, my raised beds have landscape fabric under them because I put them in an area that had a lot of gravel. And I didn't want the gravel migrating up into my beds because eventually that native soil that's underneath will migrate up. So if you have like heavy clay soil and you're building the raised beds to deal with the clay soil, then I would put fabric row cover underneath it. Or not fabric row cover, but a landscape fabric underneath it. But if you're just wanting to get, the raised contained bed and higher and taller, and there's nothing wrong with your native soil, then there's no reason at all to keep it out. So in my last place, we were happy with the soil that was underneath them, and so we just left it the way it was, and that's fine because that gives more space for the roots to grow, gives you a little bit more access to worms and things like that coming in, and so you don't. It just depends on what the underlying soil structure is like as to whether or not you want to put something under it, if that makes sense. Okay. All right. Miller's Garden says my garden beds are soft because it rained. Planted onions. Went into the garden a week later to check on them, and the soil had frozen. Will your onions come back? Yeah, your onions will be okay. Onions are pretty hardy when it comes to freezing temperatures. We'll be planting our onions this next week. I'm trying to get them ordered today. And so we'll be planting them within the next week or so. And you want to get those guys out when it's cool, and they should be okay. They should be all right, even if your soil froze a little bit. Can zucchini be grown in containers? Yes, it can be, but you need to look for container varieties. So zucchini can be very large, very, very, very big plants. I mean, I've had some that just take up like 8 square feet of space. So you need to look for container varieties of zucchini. Those will be easier to deal with. They'll be smaller. They won't be as productive, but you can definitely find those container varieties. So just look in your seed catalogs and look for a container variety of summer squash, and then try and get the biggest container that you possibly can. All right. And Elsa loves cilantro. Yeah, I just don't like cilantro. Cool. All right, so the planter has legs and it's 3 feet high. That's cool. Yeah, that's cool. So I again, still, I would say garden that you don't need to worry about putting any plastic in there. You want to have drainage. You don't want it to turn into a swamp. Okay. All right. Okay. So I think that is all. I'll kind of keep watching for questions here if you guys have any more questions. I did want to take a drink. And then we are at about 45 minutes right now. So I just wanted to take another minute to tell you guys a little bit more about the Gardening Academy. And yes, I'm really pushing right now to get people into the Gardening Academy. Now is a great time to join. We are, there's a lot of crazy stuff going on in the world right now. And now is a good time to learn how to be a good gardener. And so the Gardening Academy will do just that. We have a great group of people who are just loving it so far. We've been open for 6 months now. So we have 6 monthly topics that we've already focused on, and all of those will be available for you. And then each month we have a new gardening topic that we go over. This month we're doing tomatoes. Next month we're going to do square foot gardening. The following month after that we're going to talk about weed and pest control. Then we're going to talk about growing in the heat. And then we're going to talk about season extension. And so we've got a lot of fun topics coming up over the next 6 months. All of them designed to take you from a newbie gardener to a really experienced gardener, or if you're kind of an intermediate gardener, we're going to take you to the type of gardener that when you walk into the garden, the flowers all turn towards you instead of the sun. That's what we want, right? You want to be that, not just kidding, to be that experienced. But the whole point of the Gardening Academy is to make you a better gardener. And we have these fun interactions all the time. We do live Q&As like this one. In our private Facebook group, we have a private Facebook group that's dedicated just to you guys. And so it's always going to be relatively small. Right now we have about 30 members in the group. And I would imagine that we'll never get more than a couple of hundred people that are in that. But the Gardening Academy is a fun program, a lot of fun. And I really would encourage you guys to join it. Now, we are on a deadline. What I do is I open it up 3 or 4 times a year, and then I kind of get the new group up to speed so that we're all kind of in the group. And so we open it up for a week, bring new people in, bring everybody up to speed, and so we close it down for a few months while we kind of get everybody up to speed and used to the program. So I can't have this constant inflow of people because I have to kind of get everybody up to speed and where we're at and figure out where everybody is on their different garden level and everything. But it's a really fun program. We have just had a blast. And if you look at everything that's included, the weekly themes, we've got mini courses, we've got Q&A sessions, we've got all these expert interviews, we do food preservation and recipes and planting guides and everything. I kind of went through and put a price to it, and it was about $2,000 worth of stuff, and you get that for $25 a month. Or if you want to do it annually, it's $250, so you save $50 a year. And we're saying, somebody here saying that you don't do Facebook. That's okay. All of the live programs and everything that we do, once we do those, I then upload those into the actual content of the course. So if you're not on Facebook, that's okay. You're still going to get all of the content. Everything will still be there for you. So super fun program. And like I say, we're only open for 2 more days. So we are going to be open till the 24th of May at midnight. That's when we close. So down below there's a link that will take you out there to it. Lots more information. I've got a couple of videos on there that you can watch and learn more about what we do. But that is just a fun program and a blast. And we've got a great lineup for the whole year coming, and a lot of good people, a lot of experienced people. We've done a lot of fun stuff. We even will do sometimes, if somebody's brand new, we'll do some consults where we'll actually go online and look at their yard and their garden, and we'll talk about where you should be planting and all that kind of stuff. So just a fun program and a blast. And so I would really invite you guys to come and join the Gardening Academy as well, because we do all kinds of stuff like this all the time, these live broadcasts and stuff, and it's just a lot of fun. And I'm trying to make you a better gardener, to have a productive, easy to care for, yummy vegetable garden and fruit garden. Okay, so lots of good stuff. So that's the Gardening Academy. Click the link down below. Please go sign up. We have 2 days left. You're down to about 36 hours, and then we're closed up for a while. And so I really would like to get you guys in now as part of that group. So click down below. Okay. All right. Let's see if we have any other. When to plant strawberries. Your last frost date is March 15th. You're fine. You can get those strawberries in. In fact, strawberries are pretty hardy. You could have planted them as early as maybe February 15th if your frost date is March 15th. Our last frost date is May 15th, and I'll be planting some new strawberries here in a couple of weeks. So, anytime, once the soil is workable, you can get strawberries planted. They're pretty hardy. I prefer to plant strawberries using bare root strawberries, but either bare root or established seedlings, either way, they're hardy and do really well. And now's the time, because strawberries are technically a cool season crop. You can get ever-bearing strawberries, which will grow all the year long, but you can definitely get strawberries planted now. And then make sure that you don't let it get any fruit for a while. So if you've got ever-bearing varieties, when you plant those strawberries, you're gonna pick the blossoms off until about the end of July before you let it get any fruit. If you have June-bearing strawberries, then you don't want any fruit this year at all. So you're going to pick the blossoms off and let the plants get established. So no fruit on June-bearing strawberries in the first year. They'll do really well next year, but you just have to sacrifice it this year so that the plants get strong. Ever-bearing varieties, you can pick it all the blossoms off until about mid-July. Then the plants are established well enough that you can let them have a little bit. Okay. And then I have not ever done gardening by the moon. That's not something that I really have a lot of experience with, and haven't done it. So yeah, haven't done that one. Okay. All right, guys, again, please go join the Gardening Academy. We're super excited to get a new group in, and super happy to have you. I'll probably come on tomorrow. I don't have another workshop, but I do have some other things that we'll maybe jump on and talk about tomorrow. So I'll post another thing, and so it won't be a slide workshop and stuff. We'll maybe just have a discussion about some spring gardening topics as well tomorrow. So looking forward to that. And yeah, so that's, I think, all I have for you for today. I hope everybody enjoyed it. Please make sure that you give this video a thumbs up. If you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel, because we're going to be doing these kind of live broadcasts. Plus, I do regular videos. Like sometime this week, I'll be posting a video on how to prune peach trees. A week ago, I did 12 crops that you can grow that'll be ready in 30 days because of the kind of everything that's going on with the quarantines and stuff right now. So lots of good stuff on my YouTube channel. So make sure you subscribe to that. And then again, join the Gardening Academy. It's down below. We really want you to sign up and join. Okay, that's all I have, guys. Everybody have a great day. Happy gardening. Stay safe, and we'll see you tomorrow.